Don't for a second base your valuation on because the market is so big and I'm going to get 2% of it, therefore this is how much my company's worth.
Noor is the founder of Global Venture, and she was one of the sharks in Shark Tank. She's also an entrepreneur that started a business and exited the business.
I think I start with what are the key things to focus on as a founder. And I'm going to make assumptions here, which is false, is that everybody wants to raise money. So not everybody wants a VC investor. Not everybody wants to raise money. Lots of people are happy to build a business that's profitable and just keep it to themselves, and that's wonderful. However, I'm going to go with the assumption that everybody on this call wants to raise money. There are several things in mind for investors. If you're taking venture money, or you're getting from any fund, you must remember one thing. The fund itself raises money. We have investors. We have 185 investors. Some big, some small. So when founders come to raise money from us, sometimes they forget that it's not my capital. It's not the next partner's capital. It's not the next partner's capital. And we are liable to this capital. What that means is every fund has a mandate. So we have promised our investors that we will do something relatively specific with their money. We like to get to know our founders a year or two before, as most investors do, but we need to manage expectations. That's the first thing to keep in mind is understand your customer. And in this case, your customer is your investor. And your customer is looking for something very specific. We invest in a certain thing because that's what we've promised our investors. If we put their money to work differently, we will never raise our next fund, which puts us out of business. So illustrating that you can grow fast and illustrating traction. Investors care more about traction than they like to admit. I care more about your $1 million in revenue if you had $500,000 last year than if you had $1 million last year. So if you had $1 million last year and $1 million this year, you're like, look, I'm stable. And my reaction to that would be, that's not good. Because that means you either don't know how to grow further, or the market's not that big, or you for some reason are stalling. So actually investors care more about your growth rate and your traction than your actual revenue number. We all have something called a fund life. So our fund life, for example, is 10 years. What it means is at the 10-year mark, we have to sell everything. Now, we are allowed to ask for an extension and another extension for 1 year and another year. But that's it, we're done. So we're making money, we're losing money, we wanna sell, we don't wanna sell, it doesn't matter. Legally, we have to sell everything. Now you understand why, because we have to exit in 5 or 6 years, maybe 7, but ultimately, that's why VCs are hung up on grow fast, grow fast, grow fast. I've learned in my experience that there are certain things that illustrate a mindset difference. Kind of like a values difference in a marriage, right? When founders put on a slide and the size of the market is, I don't know, $1 kajillion, and my plan is to get 1% of that market. Every market is $1 kajillion if you define it differently. Why should you get 1% of the market? That is a very theoretical founder. A practical founder would tell you, I'm building a product and I'm gonna get 1,000 clients, and each client's gonna pay me this much, and therefore this is my revenue. And therefore this is my valuation. What are you doing first? Not how big is the universe. We all know the universe is very big. And this goes back to we're investing in people, not in theory. So you as a person, tell me what you're building. Tell me the problem you're solving. Tell me how big the problem is. But don't for a second base your valuation on because the market is so big and I'm going to get 2% of it, therefore this is how much my company's worth. What I do like to see on the other hand is this is the problem I'm solving. This is why it matters to me. Now tell me, how large is that problem? And now I'm curious, how are you solving it? I think it's biological. Typically, most investors like to invest in incremental change because most investors come from a finance or banking background. And if that's the strong part of your brain, your finance and banking and transaction brain, the weak part of your brain or the lesser strong part of your brain by default is the creative part of your brain. And it's the creative part of the brain that allows you to be a founder. It's also the creative part of the brain that can think exponentially. Your logical financial structuring part of your brain thinks incrementally or in a very linear way. Creative investors my background in this industry has taught me X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to take those learnings and translate them into this new industry that I'm in. But this cross-industry learning takes a creative mind, right? But you tell proper venture investors that, or entrepreneurs that, and as you're raising money, you really should also think about raising from successful entrepreneurs, because they're the ones to bet on entrepreneurs more than anyone else. They like that. They are creatives. So you have to know your audience. This goes back to what I said right at the beginning. Know the person you're pitching, know your customer.